Hey, welcome back to Chapter 2 of Annalynn, the Canadian Spy, The Terrible Tissues. I'm reading Chapter 2, Annalynn Meets Agent Rick. Hello, young lady, the man at the door said. My name is Agent Rick. I am an agent with CSIS, pronounced CSIS. Do you know what CSIS is? Is that when you have an upset stomach on a boat, Annalynn asked. No, that's CSIC. CSIS stands for the Canadian Security Intelligence Service. We are Canadian spies, explained the man. As he spoke, he squinted his eye and tilted his head, making himself look very mysterious. May I come in? No, Annalynn replied. I don't let strangers into my house. She still felt quite upset about the four strangers in red and blue who barged in a moment before. I have to check with my parents. Will you check with your parents? The man asked. Of course. Annalynn ran into the living room and told her parents that a C6 spy was at the front door and that his suit looked like a Canadian flag. She told him she had suspected he might be a pirate. Her dad stood to his feet and walked to the front door. He wobbled back and forth as he moved, but he made it to the door and invited the spy pirate in. When the man in the red and white suit from CSIS saw Annalyn's dad, he stepped back as far away as he could. He looked like he did not want to catch the cold. Once inside, he explained what had happened. I have bad news for you. Something terrible has happened, and we need Annalyn's help to fix the problem, he said. Why do you need my help? Annalynn asked. Because, Agent Rick began, the box of tissues has been stolen. We knew someone was after the box, but we did not know who it was or when they would strike. But now that they have, we have to get the box of tissues back from them. Why don't we just go to buy another box of tissues from the store? Annalynn asked. Because, young lady, the man said as he leaned towards her, we can't let them away with this. If they steal our tissues today and we do not get them back, they might go after our cough syrup next. Then, would we ever be in a pickle? If we do not get the box of tissues back, your parents and sister will suffer with that disgusting cold for the rest of their lives, or at least until they get better. Annalynn was shocked. She could hear the groaning of her mom and sister from the other room as they heard the news that there never might. Folks, I've made a boo-boo. Let's read that again. She could hear the groaning of her mom and her sister from the other room as they heard the news that there may never again be tissues. She looked up at her dad and saw a look of dread on his face. He shared how unhappy he was by saying, cough. Agent Rick did his best to step back even farther from Annalyn's dad and then said, Tell me, young lady, what are you holding in your hands? Annalynn held up the jar of fish to Agent Rick. As he examined the jar, he said, it is as I suspected, a jar of pickled herring. It is a traditional Norwegian food. The tissues were stolen by the Eternetterjesen. They have been after our tissues for a long time. Is that even a word? Annalynn asked. I think it is, the man replied. We say it all the time, so I think it must be a word. But that does not matter. You, Annalynn, must go and get the tissues back. Get the tissues back? Why me? The fate of the world rests on your shoulders, Annalynn, the man said. Annalynn shook her head and said, You didn't answer my question. Your question? Oh, sorry, I think it's 14. What's 14? 7 plus 7, Agent Rick said. Annalynn shook her head again and said, But that wasn't my question. Oh, the man said. I'm sorry, what was your question? Why are you sending me? Oh, that's a good question, Agent Rick said. We need your help. Why? Annalynn said. She was starting to feel frustrated. Well, to be honest, you know we're the Canadian Spy Agency, right? The man asked. Yes. Well, there aren't too many Canadian spies, Agent Rick explained. Okay, how many are there? Well, other than my supervisor, Steve, there are only 3. There are only 3 Canadian spies? Annalynn asked. She couldn't believe it. For a huge country like Canada, she thought they would have many more spies than 3. She thought they would have at least 10 or 11 spies. Yep, just 3, Agent Rick said. Why don't you send one of these 3 spies? Well, they're all busy. Well, what are they doing? Well, the one is named Monique, and she answers the phone for CSIS, so she can't leave just in case we get a phone call. We don't get many, but when we do get one, it's a doozy. What do the other 2 do? The second spy is named Frank, and he's on a mission right now. He saw a moose walking into a forest way up north, and he thought it looked suspicious. He followed it into the woods to spy on it, and he hasn't been seen since. Annalynn nodded her head. That made sense. Moose were sneaky creatures. She often wondered what they were up to. What about the last one? The last spy is me. What do you do? I send 10-year-old girls out on spy missions. Oh, I see, said Annalynn. But she was pretty sure that didn't make sense. Your mission, then, young lady, is to rescue the tissue box. You must move quickly. Otherwise, Ederjedinistan will use up all the tissues, and you will be left with an empty box. If the box runs out, no one will ever have tissues ever, ever, ever again. Folks, that is the end of Chapter 2 from Sean P.B. Robinson's Annalynn, the Canadian Spy, The Terrible Tissues. Stay tuned as I will be back to read Chapter 3 at another time. Until then, stay safe.